Thank you so much for joining us today and bringing your joyful, bright sunshine personality and wisdom to share on Chai on the Go podcast, Joy. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So before we start, can you share a brief introduction of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I am so happy to be here and having this conversation with you. I know it's going to be amazing, but a little bit about who I am. My name is Joy Mukiri. I am a trauma-informed life coach and business consultant, and I love my work. I love that I get to empower women and femmes of color predominantly, but larger communities at a global scale. So my trauma-informed work includes looking at people from a holistic perspective, because a person is not just one thing. We're a ton of different things, right? And so when we look at from a trauma-informed lens, we get to understand the person, who they are, where the mind is at, their values, their beliefs, some of the traumas that they've had that make them act the way that they act. And so through that lens, I'm able to help startups, entrepreneurs, small business owners, professionals, and people that are wanting to move to a different place in life but don't know how to do it and are looking for help. So I see myself as a guide, a coach, a healer, a teacher, someone that is helping people get back to the essence of who they are, to their soul purpose, to that alignment with the goodness of what the world is, right? And that's my job. I am also a traveler full-time. I'm a digital nomad. So I'm a little bit of a travel bird. I fly around quite a little bit, but I love it. I love what I do. I love where I'm at in my life. And I would say in this spirit of my life, I feel so grateful to have the opportunities that I have to truly live life to the fullest and show other people just like me, because I am an immigrant. I come from a very, very humble background, that we can do it, that there's so much out here in the world for us.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you share your work, your identity, and how powerful you are as a woman of color, immigrant, first generation. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for coming to the show. Today, focus, we have a lot of people request around the art of communication, and I know you're definitely an expert for that. So let me throw some of the questions that I have for you, okay? So number one question is, why do you think some people need help communicating?
That is such a good question. I think communication gets a little bit of a bad rep, right? And most people are bad at communicating because they lack the resources to communicate well, right? So when you're communicating, there's a sender and a receiver. And sometimes the receiver doesn't get the message, right? And it could be the receiver that's not understanding, or the sender is not saying it in a way that the person understands. Another thing that comes down to communication is the intent. What are we trying to communicate? Are we communicating to get our point across? Are we communicating because we want to be seen and say things? Or what are we trying to do with it? So I think communication does get a bad rep, but it's not as difficult as people make it seem, because just like with anything else, you can learn the right tools that work for you while you're communicating in different settings as well.
Okay. And so you talk about communication and how can we improve them? How can we be the best communicator at all time? At all time.
At all time. I like that. I think part of it is, number one, asking yourself, what am I trying to say? Right? Like, it comes down to simple Bernie style. What am I trying to say? Who am I trying to say it to? And do I think I'm able to pass this message across? And then number two, a big thing is listening. Part of communication, people think communication is a lot of talk. If I'm saying things and if I say it super loud, I'm communicating well, but not really. A lot of the communication is in the little instances where you're not talking, right? Where you're sitting and allowing yourself to actually listen to what the person is saying so that you're able to give feedback or communicate. So that's part of active listening, where your mind is open, your heart is open. You're not listening to give an answer, or you're not listening just enough to say what you want to say, because a lot of people are like that, right? I just want to get my point across. That's what I'm just trying to get my point across. But really sitting and saying, okay, there's a sender, there's a receiver, and I have to play both roles. I think that has been the greatest tip that I have used when I communicate, is telling myself, Joy, practice being the sender and practice being the receiver, right? And another thing that I would say is asking questions, asking clarifying questions if you don't understand something is super important, because if you say something and the other person doesn't understand and you kind of pick up on them not understanding, ask, was that clear? Is there something that I can make clear for you? Because if we don't and we assume, that's where the line of communication gets broken.
So wow, that's powerful. In a way, to sum it up, three things out from that thing that you share. So 3 things to be successful communicator.
In communication. 1, intention. What's your intention? Number 2, active listening. Open listening, like be fully present and ready there. And number 3, the emotional intelligence of reading the room, right? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this emotional intelligence part, because it's basically being self-aware of my own emotions and your own emotions, and creating a space where, because it's so easy for someone to say something, and then if it rubs you the wrong way, most people just want to get in there and go at it. But taking a step back and saying, what are they trying to communicate here, behind the shouting or the yelling, the screaming, or like the frustration? What are they trying to tell me? And when you take time to listen and read body language, you realize that maybe this person is super, super upset. And the best thing, instead of me going at it with him at the ring, is giving them that time and space and saying, I understand, I see you. And then usually almost immediately that person is going to calm down, because they'll realize that it's not a fight. Like, we're not trying to be defensive here. We're not on the boxing ring. We really want to communicate and understand each other.
Right. The complexity of emotional intelligence, right? Yes. Everyone can practice. Thank you for sharing the 3 tips.
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm glad that you're here today. And thank you so much for the time being of the 10-minute 3 tips here today.
Ooh, you're so welcome.
I'm looking forward probably to see you in the next episode or more, right?
Yes, please. I'll be coming back if you allow me.
Yes. Thank you.